Using multiple PCs creates unique challenges for both users and IT staff. For users, their files and settings don't follow them when they roam from PC to PC. For example, if a user creates a document on his laptop, that document isn't immediately available when he logs on to his desktop PC. For IT, decentralized storage of files and settings leads to even more challenges. Files are difficult to back up, they're difficult to secure, and because they're scattered across many PCs, availability of important files is difficult to manage. User state virtualization addresses these challenges. It centralizes storage of users' files and settings to make backing up and securing them easier. Managing the availability of important files is possible. Also, user state virtualization enables users' files and settings to follow them from PC to PC. Windows supports two forms of user state virtualization: roaming user profiles and folder redirection. We'll start by introducing roaming user profiles. In Windows 7, user profiles are normally stored in the C/users folder. Each user account, domain or local, that logs onto the PC has a user profile, and each user profile contains the user's files and settings stored in many profile folders. Documents, music, and pictures are all examples. Each user profile also includes an ntuser.dat file, which contains the user's registry settings. With roaming user profiles, Windows synchronizes the local user profile with a server copy. This happens when users log on to and off of Windows. As a result, user profiles can follow users from PC to PC. For example, a new user named Paul logs on to a computer and Windows creates his user profile. Once Paul logs off of Windows, Windows copies his local user profile to the server, creating the server copy of his user profile. When Paul logs on to the second computer, Windows doesn't create a new user profile for him. Instead, Windows copies his user profile from the server. Paul then creates files, changes settings, and so on. Then, when Paul logs off of the second computer, Windows synchronizes his local user profile with the server copy. Now, when Paul logs onto the first computer again, Windows synchronizes his local user profile with the server copy. The changes Paul made on the second computer automatically follow him back to the first computer. Windows 7 improves the roaming profile experience from earlier Windows versions. It simplifies the folder structure. It also provides additional administrative options to enable user settings to be synchronized more quickly. There are two ways to configure roaming user profiles. The first is to configure a roaming user profile in Active Directory users and computers by editing individual user objects. In this case, you specify the location in which to create the server copy of the user's profile. The second is to create and deploy a per-machine group policy object that specifies a location for roaming user profiles. This GPO applies to all users who log on to any computer within the GPO's scope. Of course, you can also use scripts to automate both methods. Roaming user profiles are manageable by using group policy. For example, you can exclude profile folders from roaming. You can cause Windows to automatically delete old user profiles. Control how roaming user profiles behave over slow network connections, and so on. One of the new changes in Windows 7 is that the user's registry file, ntuser.dat, can be uploaded while users are logged onto their computers. and this is also controllable by using group policy. Folder redirection is the second way that Windows supports user state virtualization. Whereas roaming user profiles copies users' files and settings between the server and the PC, folder redirection simply leaves users' files on the server. Folder redirection points users and applications to the server location to access them. For example, when a user opens the Documents folder, Windows transparently redirects them to the server location of that folder. IT administrators can choose the specific folders that they want to redirect on user desktops. With Windows 7, you can redirect most of the profile folders found in a user profile, including the Desktop, Documents, Favorites, Music, and Pictures folders. Additionally, Windows 7 automatically caches redirected folders locally by using offline files. These files are then always available even when users aren't connected to the network. This is especially important for users with portable computers. Folder redirection and offline file performance is another area of improvement in Windows 7. With folder redirection, users' files are always available from any PC they use. Changes they make to a file from one PC are thus immediately available from any other PC they use. You configure folder redirection by creating and deploying a per-user GPO. Within the GPO, you configure only the folders that you want to redirect. You can choose between Basic Redirection, which creates a folder for each user at the same location, Advanced Redirection, which allows you to configure redirection based on security group membership. Additional settings are available for each redirected folder. For example, you can specify what happens when the policy is removed, or whether users have exclusive rights to their redirected folders. You can use roaming user profiles or folder redirection alone. However, using roaming profiles alone can cause excessive network traffic and significantly reduce logon performance, especially when users have a lot of large files in their user profiles. Using folder redirection alone doesn't allow users' settings to follow them. Combining roaming user profiles with folder redirection gives you the best of both worlds. You can configure folder redirection for folders containing large files, such as documents, music, pictures, and videos. Then, you can enable roaming user profiles to enable the remaining profile folders and settings to roam. As a result, users have access to their files and settings from any PC they use, without significantly increasing logon time or creating excessive network traffic. User state virtualization can address challenges that roaming users face, as well as challenges faced by the IT staff supporting them. This video introduced you to the two forms of user state virtualization that Windows supports: roaming user profiles and folder redirection. The next two videos in the series walk you through real-world scenarios that illustrate both in detail. For more information about user state virtualization in Windows 7, please visit technet.microsoft.com/windows.